Hello, I'm Marky Dragon, also known as Marcus Eikenberry in real life, and welcome to another episode of Neos Land, the Kickstarter episodes where we are going through all the stuff coming up about Kickstarter, about the game, and Q&As, roundtables, all that stuff. We've got something kind of special this round, and we've run into our first problem. Woohoo! So we're going to resolve it live. How does that sound, everybody?
Good.
Pretty good.
Sounds fine.
Good.
Oh, we've got a resident Jedi with us. Awesome.
You're the Jedi. All a bunch of weenies.
So here's the issue. The issue is that we've been seeing a lot of people posting and talking about the game, and there's a misconception that's out there that we want to address. And this misconception is that that we can go and fight another player in the game and bust down their castle and take their land. And it was never intended that we would be able to steal land from one another. It's not something that we ever actually even really broached in any of the roundtables or whatnot. It was just like, it's your land, you own it. We've talked about being able to maybe break down some defenses, maybe break into somebody's house or whatever, but we've never talked about the land ownership being able to change unless it's willingly. And
Actually, we have touched a bit on land ownership changing hands if you fail to pay your taxes.
yes, and I guess that wouldn't be willingly, but that would be under contract and understood.
Yeah.
And it's not like I can go and attack Evil's castle, break down his walls, go sit in the throne. I own the land now. That's just not happening. So, anyway, so here's the quandary, and we're going to do a roundtable right now about this, because it's not just like one person has had this misconception, it's many. And many people are talking about it as well as if it will be a good feature in the game, and they can't wait to play with contested lands. So, let's talk about that. Not about changing the land that we've got. So if you are purchasing a package that contains land, that land is not able to be contested at all. But what if we could add, so we've got the purchased land, which is yours. Don't worry about it. What if we added like King's Land or something like that as well? And this would be land that could be contested. Kind of like, let me give you an example. And this is kind of if any of you have played 7 Days to Die, yeah, Evil knows nothing about 7 Days to Die.
Every day, 6 hours.
Every day. Oh my God. So in 7 Days to Die, you can take up residence someplace. You can kind of claim an area as your own. You build up your defenses and everything, and you thwart off attacks from these mobs of zombies, but at the same time, the future of 7 Days to Die really is that there's going to be player versus player, and that and it could be one person against another, or one team against another, or one guild against another, and they're going to try and overthrow this other person's land and control it just to be an ass or whatever, because there's not really any more point to it than that in 7 Days to Die. But I have the harebrained idea that what if we could have this king's land? It's like land that's owned by the king, but you currently control it. You take possession of it, and what is this, another Jedi? Or is this a Sith?
Another person that's got the trademark fee to me.
The one thing I want to say is that we got a lot of crap for Evil being hooded in the very first episode of people saying, can't these devs show some respect and like some professionalism and everything? They thought you were a dev, and so I just want to say that everybody on this show are players. There are no devs allowed because I told them they couldn't be here because we are doing this roundtable. But I hope to come to a resolution on this whole thing before the end of this live show, and we'll have Jacques on the show when we're ready to have him in after we're done figuring things out. Anyway, so what if we could have these king's land, and this land is something that maybe you purchase from the king, so it's like a gold sink or something like that, and then you start building on it and you control it, and maybe this land, has a little bit more resources available on it than the purchased land, and vice versa. The purchased land has more security.
I think you have it reversed.
What?
I think you have it reversed.
What do you mean?
The king's land is the secure area.
Oh.
The non-king's land is the open to do whatever you want land.
I think that you make a very good point there.
Because from the very beginning, I was advocating for a dual system. If you go back and watch the videos, I have always advocated for a dual system because there are people who will not want to be hanging out in town and building their house in town. There will be people like me who will want to be in an area that is undiscovered for the first 2 months, building up his fortress and building his dungeon to kill players in, and otherwise be, prepping, as it were, for the oncoming onslaught of PCs that think they're all that in a box of chocolates. And I think the King's Land should be the secure area, where you know that you have security.
So the king is basically providing security for his people, and that
Exactly.
totally makes sense.
Which is
Totally
why
makes sense.
you're paying taxes to him.
Yeah.
He's taking care of the roads, providing the city guards, repairing the walls on the city, and otherwise, doing kingly stuff. Occasionally he throws out an edict that's really stupid because all kings do that, but
So what do we call this other land that can be claimed then? If the king's land is the purchased land, what do we call this other what do we call this land that can be grabbed?
the unknown. I don't know. Take your pick. Non-king's land.
Non-king's land.
No case land, original.
Well, you don't have to be original. You just have to have an accurate descriptor.
Or maybe that's
What?
Neos land.
The wild.
News land, yeah.
Because you start out in the king's land and you're looking
You
for
travel
new
to the
land.
Neos land. It's the
And-
new land.
With the highest level package, you are the king of that area. So, people, you can sell off the land and people can start a city there, and you provide the guards and you collect the taxes.
Interesting.
Now,
Do you think
it
people
also goes-
could work together to make their own towns here where they don't have any of the king's land or the purchased land, and that they would successfully be able to defend it all the time?
Well, that depends on how creative the players are.
I think this could make
Whether-
for some epic battles.
Yes, and it also
you repeat that
depends on how many guards you hire, how many ramparts you build, whether or not you have the ogres being paid in orc, on your side, or whether or not the dragons have taken up residence. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do with this, and the open world is what I personally have always been advocating for. I mean, it's one of those deals where the possibilities are endless, and this goes back to the control of the space as opposed to the ownership of the space. And this also lends towards roaming PvE mobs, where you have like a horde of orcs or goblins or whatever roam through an area and just like pillage everything, or try to. So, I mean, it's an infinite, dynamic, changing environment, and you either adapt and overcome and become stronger, or you're ogre food.
Yeah. So, so just to identify the issue here, and just to put it into words as best we can, the issue is that maybe there needs to be two types of land, and that the purchased land when someone, I think it's so important, and I talked to Jacques about this a little bit as well. He thinks it's very important as well. If you pay real life cash for a piece of land, then you should have some security in that, and that real life cash really holds a lot more weight than gold in the game, and or whatever currency we use. We still got to do another show on that. I keep calling it gold, so it's probably going to end up just being called gold. I don't know, but that's a whole other story. So let me just throw out some questions here, and I just want to throw out these questions here, and just to get everybody thinking, and so keep your answers really short. I'm going to go through a bunch of questions here, but who are the people that are going to want these two different types of land?
Ooh, right here, Mr. Gata.
Okay, so you say that you personally want. Okay, so but describe that. I mean, like. Okay, so Frank, my friend Frank, who's a Care Bear, and I like him a lot. I'm not saying that as an insult. It's the way he likes to play. He wants secure land, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And my friend Fear, who's a PvPer and likes to be an asshole in game, I'm sure he wants the conflict. And so they may be the two representatives. What else is there? What other kinds of people would want that?
Anybody who wants to occasionally go out and do stuff and explore. I mean,
Players that
go ahead.
players that would rather be independent. Players that don't want to exactly be in a guild and would rather work independently won't really want to live with other people within game. It just gives them their own personal spot that they can decorate to a point that it doesn't require any rules by a king. It's just a little bit of freedom.
But also doesn't afford any protection.
Well, that depends on how well you design it.
Exactly.
And maybe you are also getting better resources in that area where you don't need to pay taxes to your landlord.
Well, or the resources are better because you are out in these other areas that are richer in resources.
On top of that, you're not paying a tax to the king.
And what is needed, wanted, or wished for both of these land types?
Magic defense.
Say what?
For the guys that live in the woods all alone, there should be like magic defense or something like that. Like casting spells on your own home, so I don't know, it repels ogres or something.
Okay.
Definitely, people that want to live independently in an environment that isn't surrounded by any other people would require some sort of means to protect themselves, because kings, if they live in a kingdom, would be expected to protect their residents, but people outside of a kingdom would need some sort of mechanism that allows them to protect themselves.
So in the king's land, the protection is provided much so by the king, not 100%, because there's always strife that goes on, but primarily by the king. And in the I'm just going to call it Neos land, because really it's like the new land for the people. That would be up to more of yourself or to your group. I can totally see groups needing to form to live together for protection. So anyway. Does that sound kind of like, am I on the right track here?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
The other thing is, this goes back to the possibility of hiring NPCs. Make it so that some of the NPC mobs are bribable. And say you have, for instance, you agree with a local druid or dryad not to cut down trees in a certain area of the forest, as long as they'll provide a defense for you, and you'll assist them either by paying them something like gold or planting trees in your area, or in general coming to their defense as well. I mean, there are a number of ways that the mechanics for that can be worked out, but the entire idea is that you're providing an alternative method of helping with your defense. Because, to be honest, at the beginning of this, there's not going to be enough players for people to really form large groups.
You don't think so?
No.
I plan on billions and billions of people wanting to play.
Well, that's eventually. I mean, when it leaves alpha and beta,
yes.
yeah,
in the beginning, from us people, that are the Kickstarter people or whatever, there might be, several thousand of us at most.
Yeah, but as long as the world is infinitely expandable from the start, and if we're willing to travel as far away from a populated area as we can, that could provide you quite a substantive amount of time to build up.
Okay, so let me go on to the next thing. We're kind of going through this kind of fast, but here's what's going to happen: when we get through all of this, we're going to wrap it all up, and it's just all going to snap together, and everybody's going to go, "Holy shit, that's awesome!" At least that's what I hope. How should people feel about the different land types?
Well, that's up to them. We can't just say, how are you going to feel about it?
But we can have a goal on that. We have people want security and people want conflict. So with the purchased land, the king's land or whatever, we should feel more secure.
Well, here's the thing. If you are in the king's land, you just make sure that the rules are very well known. In the king's land, these are the rules. Everywhere else, there are no rules. There are certain areas that are
nomad land.
Yeah, there are certain areas, like for instance, if there's a road between two areas where the kings rule, those roads have some sort of defense to them. Like there's a traveling guard or something.
So a lot of conflict that may happen right in that area too.
Well, the idea is there's less security, but there is some security. Now, you go off the beaten path, you never know what you're going to find. And this could end up becoming like quest books in and of themselves.
Yeah.
Where, you lost your sword in X area to some group of ogres, and you're sending a player out to kill the ogres, or a group of players, and bring back the sword for a reward. Or something like that. I mean, the possibilities are pretty damn infinite there. But I think as far as the way people feel, that'll develop on its own. I mean, I don't think we could really predict what are they going to do and how are they going to do it. I think we should just leave that as an open, blank slate, because you never know what the players are going to do in an open environment. I mean, EVE is a prime example of this. EVE, the developers put this system in place, and then they found out what the players were doing with it, and they were like, "Holy crap, we never intended that."
Right.
And
let me ask another question here. Keeping it, I know you have a lot of thoughts on this, Evil.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just like a wind-up doll,
Yeah. Just keep a lid on that jack in the box.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. The idea that you have of that these lands outside of the towns or whatever being the lands that are contestable compared to the lands within town being not contestable. What if I get my blocks of land and I want to put them out in the middle of the forest near no one else, and they are purchased land? Shouldn't I be able to do that?
Not really.
And then can I, for instance, take and say, okay, I've got my 4 blocks here, which is the core of my house or whatever, And I want to do 2 blocks out all around in a circle of this contestable area because I think that I can manage the resources enough to defend all of that. And is that a scenario that that can work with this?
Yeah, I've got an idea where there's a PvP and PvE. PvE is the King's Land, where you pay for the land that you rent off the king, so you're paying rent, you pay a sort of upfront cost for the land, and then continuously pay rent each month. The PvP area, like the People's Land, the rent for the land there is minimal. It's just literally an upkeep cost, so it's a lot less. The cost of the land's a lot less, but everything on that piece of land that you build can be destroyed by any player. So therefore you have the people that work the Care Bears that want to sort of build up their house and not have people worry sort of people coming along and knocking it down, but the people that actually do want to do a lot of PvPing, defending, renting guards as such, then they can go in the PvP areas and groups of people can come along and try and take down this house, destroy it. They can't take the land because the land's owned by that person, but they can literally take the house, the building, the castle down to the ground by any means, fireballs or whatever. So that gives the 2 sides. So the person that wants to play PvP and thinks, oh yeah, I can defend it all the time, I've got enough guards, I'm going to be on regularly, my phone app will tell me exactly when it's being attacked. They can have that option, and yes, they can lose everything because someone can literally take down the front door, walk in, take everything they've got there and demolish the house completely. This person might store everything on the PvP area, the King's Land, in a separate house and just have this one as like a battle castle. So therefore you can have 2
so
completely
it's like
types of houses.
it's like their front line fort as opposed to their home that they have back at home. You know, in medieval times, well, even these days, you know, the soldiers' home in their home country is good. You know, there's not a lot of issues that go on there. They go out to battle and they're in like these frontline camps or whatever, and those camps sometimes become under attack and everything. And you know, kind of what you're describing is you know, the PvP area being the front lines.
Yeah.
And everything. So
because I mean, you need both areas to sort of satisfy. I mean, there's probably, I mean, I wouldn't say 50-50, but it was probably close to that for people that want to keep stuff safe and sort of do their own work without being bothered, and people that actually want to do PvP and have the risk of losing a castle that they've built up.
Yeah, there's going to be people who want risk and people who don't, and so we have to balance this out. On the people who are taking more risk should get more reward, and the people who are safer, you know, pay for that safety in one fashion or another. And in many cases, I think it should be not in the fact of that it's just that they're paying money, because we really want to avoid, you know, the perception of pay to win and everything. We want people playing this game that really enjoy the game, who might be retired or whatnot, and have a budget that's very, very small for entertainment, but they can contribute greatly to the game and to the community. And so we don't want to ace them out based on real life money. And at the same time, the game needs to support itself. The game has to be generating so many dollars per month per player in order to keep it going.
Yeah.
So
I've written a note on the
I have a
forums
question.
about this, where you have 1 month. When you pay a subscription of 1 month, you get enough cash to be able to cover a rent of a relatively small building. So you actually get in-game cash with your monthly subscription to be able to cover, say, a small house. So therefore, the people that literally only pay a few hours a month, like 2 hours each weekend or something like that, don't have to then go out and try and make the money just to cover the rent. They actually have the rent in the subscription, and that injects money into the game as well for sort of everyone to use. But at least that covers a small parcel. So therefore, you can have the very casual gamers that want to play a couple of hours a month, and their
Do you
rent's
know-
covered.
What suggestion you're getting at there, Richard? I don't know where I've actually heard of that, but there is somewhere that does do that similar suggestion, and it is a very favourite suggestion when it comes to a lot of the older gamers who have work outside or just in real life where they generally can't get on a lot, but they like to have a home where they can live in game, and there is packages that they subscriptions that they run off that gives them just the right amount that kind of injects that money into their accounts, that if they're not on, it will instantly renew their rent, you could say, without them having to be online. And
I think that is a very, very good thing to have, and I know that Jacques is very attuned to that. So we there's going to be some sort of security with subscription and everything. So that I don't think will be a problem. Okay.
I have a small question.
Yes.
You were talking a lot about Kingsland. What if a group of players make another kingdom and make a second king? Then what?
Well, Kingsland is just a term to kind of describe protected by the king, and so
Yeah, but if you have players that are
that are
literally
kings as well.
that are kings as well, I mean, maybe make it an option to hire a large number of NPCs at a reasonable price for guards, just city guards.
I think that it's all terminology. And what we're really talking about here is that land that was purchased for cash has a different level of protection or safety to it than land that is claimed in the game, whatever. And whether that land is free, I just stake my claim and say this, I'm taking this, or whether that land that you have to do something to acquire the right to that land in the beginning or whatever. I don't know how what that'll be, but what I want to get out of this is the security, the known security for the purchased land, and so people understand exactly how that's going to be secured, as opposed to the other perception that people want to do, where they want to go and battle and take other people's land. And so
What if I don't add traps to our territory? Like activatable traps, like you coming into your territory, you deactivate them?
I think that you can have that whether you either land type. But anyway,
even in the King's Land, you would have thieves that are trying to sneak into your house.
yes,
It's just they can't destroy your house.
right, or they can't take your land.
Yeah.
That is, I think, the biggest point, is that they can't take ownership of your land unless you willingly give it to them.
Yeah.
Which, that's a whole different story.
See, but I
So-
don't think it should be necessarily a matter just of terminology. I think it should be an in-game mechanic. I mean, there's the other, because if it's just a matter of terminology, what happens if you have so many players wanting to live on the King's Land and there's not enough King's Land? How do we deal with that?
The value goes up. People keep offering more and more until people are willing to sell.
Ooh, wait a sec.
Someone wants to take that King's Land.
Wait a sec. Let's throw in a little twist. Let's say we allow players that are adjacent to King's Land to allow them to be annexed. They can choose to be annexed into the King's Land. Strictly adjacent, not out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, if your free land is right next to the King's Land.
I think that I personally want my free land. I don't like using the word free land because I don't know whether there's going to be any cost associated with it.
Well, there's always a cost.
Well, but here's what I'm really afraid of. We've all seen the games where they've talked about things and say how it's going to be, and then somebody clings on to a term and then everybody's pissed off later because you guys said it was free land, and free land can't have a price to it, and so we're all going to revolt and be pissy. And I just really want to try and avoid that. We're going to get that no matter what. But I just want to all be very conscious of that at this point, because now what we're doing, this is one of the first roundtables where by the end of it we are going to solidify something in stone that is going to be like canon law in the Catholic Church and go on forever. So, I want to. I want to make sure we're on the right track. And so what I want to do is I want to end this episode, and then we're going to come back with another episode, and we're going to get a little bit more into the creative side of this stuff and come up with some more ideas and everything. And then we'll end that episode, and then we'll bring on Jacques, and then we're going to evaluate this. And we're going to make sure it makes all business sense and how it can work, and we'll write it out on paper and make sure that the whole thing can gel together and that it's good for the game and it's good for the players, it's good for the company. And then we will then that episode will end, and the next one after that will be the action plan on making this happen. And so stay tuned, everybody. Don't go anywhere if you're watching live. You guys in the round table, hang on. We'll be right back. And those of you watching on YouTube, you just have to wait for the next episode. So you should subscribe.